What's going on, guys? Mikkel here, and I just got a new microphone, so you guys don't need to listen to that buzzing in the background of all my videos. Anyway, today we're going to get into Airbnb and why I like Airbnb stock so much for the months to come. If you like videos like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment down below what you think about Airbnb and what other stocks you want to see in the future. So I think Airbnb is a pretty interesting company because it's a product me and all my friends use all the time. The thought of going to a hotel these days seems kind of crazy because an Airbnb is just such a better experience. We pretty much only get Airbnbs because they allow you a lot more freedom, and overall you end up having a lot more fun. You don't have to book a whole bunch of hotels next to each other and walk down the hallway and all stay in a tiny little room when you can get an entire house everyone can stay. Overall, going forward, I don't see myself really ever getting a hotel room unless it's more resort style, and I really see myself only utilizing Airbnbs. I think it's also important to realize that Airbnb should trade at a higher multiple to most other of the travel companies in the industry because it's really a tech platform that hosts an ecosystem of participants as well as customers. I think this is a big value proposition, and we'll get into it later. So let's jump right into it. And first, I just kind of want to show you Airbnb's financials because I think it will help show kind of what's going on with the stock right now. In 2017, Airbnb showed revenues of 2.5 million and scaled that to 4.8 million in 2019. 2020, there was a hit because of the illness situation, and they only saw $3.3 million worth of revenue, which was a drastic decrease. I think this decrease really had nothing to do with Airbnb themselves, and it was more a problem that was put onto them that caused massive headwinds. I think these headwinds are very short term, and while they could come back this coming winter, I don't think it's something we're going to be seeing in the next 3 to 5 years. Therefore, anytime the stock gets hit because of these current headwinds, I personally think it's a good buying opportunity. Another thing that I always like to pay attention to that I don't see too many people talk about is this cost of revenue right here. Airbnb, since 2018 to 2020, I mean, you don't really see that big of an increase in the cost of revenue. I really like to see this because it shows they're really growing organically and they have a great brand. This is something I really like to look for, and I think a big reason about this is what the Seeking Alpha article talks about, where companies actually claim a verb as kind of their name. And you see this in stuff like Uber, where I'm going to go get an Uber or I'm going to get an Airbnb. These stocks typically have a certain level of clout associated with them, where people actually love the company so much that it comes kind of ingrained in society. I think things like this are really going to make them stick around long term, and I think make the company themselves demand a premium to other companies trading. They're kind of the first company you always think of when you want one of these services. So I think this is a good reason why where some people might say Airbnb is expensive. Well, a lot of companies that are leaders in their class have been expensive for a long time. People have been saying Amazon has been expensive for the last 10 years, but that doesn't mean Amazon is going to stop growing or become a bad stock. This is one of the reasons I really like Airbnb, because it reminds me kind of like what Amazon was maybe 5 to 8 years ago. Airbnb just went IPO and is kind of still in that phase of people understanding it. I think Airbnb has a very good shot of being added to the SNP500 one day, and while it trades at a pretty high valuation, I don't think it'll have any trouble growing into the years to come, and think it has a lot more room to expand. I wouldn't be surprised if Airbnb had a $1 trillion market cap one day. Seems like a lot now, but when Apple and Amazon end up having $4 trillion market caps, $1 trillion won't seem that much for a company like Airbnb. I think it's also important to talk about NetworkEffects. NetworkEffects caused some of my best investments in recent years. NetworkEffects, as shown right here, is a phenomenon whereby increased number of people or participants improve the value or good of the service. You see things like network effects in things like Twitter, Facebook, Bitcoin, any crypto networks, Uber, which are all very successful companies. I think it's a real value proposition when you have customers and participants aligned for the common good of the company. They all get something out of it, and it really makes Airbnb a platform for all kinds of living experiences. Airbnb has their own, obviously they have their own rental side of the business, but they also have something called experiences. All these different things kind of work together to make Airbnb less of a rental company and more of a living company. They're trying to provide an overall great living experience for the people getting Airbnbs, and it allows people who rent out their own properties on the Airbnb platform to create a living. This is one of the big reasons why I do like Airbnb over a company like Uber. I used to be invested in Uber, but Uber kind of seemed to me like a race to the bottom. As this website points out, Uber drivers are continuously driving to earn a living. This created problems with a lot of governments and local legislations because they looked at it like Uber drivers were essentially working a full-time job. You don't really have this problem with Airbnb because people are simply renting out their unused properties. This kind of makes Airbnb a little less risky in the form of government restrictions and what different accommodations the company will have to make going forward to comply with different governments. Also, Airbnb, typically when you get a ride, say in an Uber, you're always kind of looking for the cheapest option, and there's not really too much you'd really do to want to pay for a more expensive option. Airbnb is kind of the opposite, and you do get some great value with going for more expensive options. You can get a nicer house, and typically you're willing to pay up because you're getting a greater experience. This kind of gets rid of the whole race to the bottom effect you kind of see with Uber, where everyone's looking to do everything as cheap as possible. Airbnb, I think, has a higher bar, and people are willing to pay more because you're paying for an overall great experience and something you're going to be sharing with a lot of people. Therefore, you don't always want to get the cheapest Airbnb, you really want to get something that's going to make everyone happy. I think this is kind of important because it boosts an overall ecosystem that really focuses on quality rather than just the cheapest available option. That was one of my biggest problems with Uber, as well as the fact that self-driving cars, I feel like, have a very likely opportunity to disrupt Uber's business model and create an even larger incentive for them to create cheaper options for their customers. I don't really see that being a similar disruptive technology being in the way of Airbnb, and therefore I really think Airbnb is a very sustainable platform. I also want to get into, for Airbnb, the overall IPO. The date of the IPO, Airbnb jumped from $68 and opened up at $144. At $68, I would have loved to have been scooping up Airbnb, but unfortunately, the best we were able to get as retail investors was $144. I didn't personally buy because when I watched something rocket up 100% in one day, it didn't seem that attractive to me, and it kind of just made me wish I was able to participate in the fundraisers earlier on because I always really enjoyed the company. Unfortunately, that's not the case though, so what are you going to do? That being said, if we take a look at the Airbnb stock price, after that initial IPO, it actually skyrocketed 73% all the way up to $220. Now, I didn't touch the stock up here because that seemed extremely overvalued to me, and at this time we saw a lot of growth stocks running really hard and getting to pretty scary valuations. Airbnb then subsequently dropped almost 36%, and now we're sitting in this range right here between 140 and let's say 130. This is where I first started adding shares and was actually the original price Airbnb opened up. I could have added Airbnb when it first IPO'd, but it turned out to save me some time because now I'm getting the stock a couple months later for the same exact price. Now, what I'm watching for currently is for Airbnb, assuming the illness comes back, to take another leg lower. Another leg lower, I think, could bring the Airbnb market cap to under, or the stock price to near 100 and the market cap near 70 billion. At this price, I would be adding Airbnb aggressively because I think once this next winter is over, we're going to be through the worst we really ever see of the illness. From there, I think it's only up from there for Airbnb, and I think they're going to drastically catch up on a lot of the revenues they've been missing as everyone rushes to get back into the travel mood. Another thing I want to encourage you guys to do is go watch some videos with their CEO. He's a real stud and makes some really great points about where he thinks the industry is going in the future. He makes a very good case for the company, and I think you guys should check it out. Anyway, my dog is dying to get out of my room right now, so I'm going to cut it off for here. I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to come back for more. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Mikkel out.